Hey,
Hi,
it's Tash and Carly,
and you're listening to Motherhood,
not as we planned.
So get comfy, grab a cup of tea,
Or a glass of wine, and let's start talking about all the things too many of us avoid discussing.
Hi guys, and welcome to another episode of Motherhood Not As We Planned. Today's episode is called Can You Ever Trust Again? I think this is something massive, isn't it? And I think, it's a really, really hard one. I know if you was to even ask me this a month or two ago, I would have said, hell no, I would never trust again. Like the thought of even contemplating ever being in another relationship, I was like, actually, I don't ever want to be with anyone again.
I remember you saying.
But it's very, like, obviously everything's very raw, and the thought of, I don't know, ever being able to, or thinking, or even considering about someone having, I don't know, that vulnerability, being vulnerable again, allowing myself in a position to be hurt. However, I feel like obviously I am in a much better headspace, and I would like to be able to, the way I see my future is I would love to meet someone again. I would love to fall in love with someone again. I would love to get married again. I do believe that different relationships serve different purposes. And for me, I feel like my marriage gave me my two beautiful boys, and that perhaps was the purpose, and I wasn't aware of that. Or it's not even that things are like pre-planned for us or pre-laid out. I just think that's what it is. But I'm at a point where I absolutely want to meet someone and know that that's in my future. For me, the thought of ever being able to trust anyone again seems impossible at the moment.
Really? With my relationship, there are things that I would like to share that I'm not going to delve too much into, really, because I'm not really able to share as much as I would like. But what I will say is my ex had issues which really led to like betrayal and a massive lack of trust. And with a relationship, I just don't think that it can continue without that trust.
Yeah.
So when we talk about, you know, are you ever going to be able to trust again? If you are not in a good enough place to be able to trust someone, I would say that you're better off not being in a relationship. Now, what I've always told myself, and like through my healing journey and the therapy that I've had and everything, I'm such a hopeless romantic. Like, I will not allow what I've been through to kind of like tarnish that idea of getting married and being in love for the rest of my life and having that happily ever after. Sometimes people are shocked when I tell them I want to get married again, but I don't want to allow what happened in my previous relationship to stop me living out what I still hope to one day have. And not trusting in the relationship I had was due to the relationship I had, that person. I don't want to then
paint everything with the same brush.
Yeah, like if I'm with someone else.
It's that combination of you two together.
Exactly. And I think it takes a long time to get to that point where you realise it's not I don't trust men, it's I didn't trust that person.
See, I'm still at that point.
Of course, yeah. But I don't want to, if I'm then dating someone who I feel like has all these green flags and I don't see any red flags, it's like, well, really, like they deserve to have my trust until they do something where
there's a red flag. Yeah.
So
yeah, I can't wait to get to that point, because obviously where I'm at the moment, I think the idea of being able to trust someone, and almost like, I don't know, when you're in a relationship with someone and giving the trust to them, I feel like it's that vulnerability, isn't it? That they literally like have your heart and they can just crush it.
Yeah. But do you know what? That's a relationship.
It is you're right. And you're right. And I think I would love to get to that point where a part of me, like my rational brain knows you can't you know, say, it's what we've mentioned before, is that not all men are the same. And there are some really good men out there. And I feel like I know that. And I feel like I'm a good judge of character, and especially everything I've learned like the last few months, I feel like if I was to ever let anyone in any way, anyway, I would feel like I'd like to say I'm a good judge of character, and like I'd trust my judgment that there would be a good guy. But, you know, we've all made mistakes, haven't we? But yeah, it's that idea for me of trusting someone is terrifying.
One thing I will say, and not sounding like a real like negative Nancy, but I don't actually think that you should ever trust anyone 100%. Like
oh, so uplifting today.
No, but like I think in general, like, can you even completely trust yourself? Sometimes you're put in situations where you're like, I would never do that, and then suddenly like you've done that. Like, I'm not saying like, guys, if you're listening to this and you trust your person 100%, don't. But I don't think it's unwise to always like.
And I know that I'm going to have a lot of walls that I put up, and you know, maybe it will take the right person to try and break them down, and for someone not to give up on you, and for someone to show you that they can trust you. Like, I don't think that's a bad thing. And we've spoken about it on a previous episode, but again, like, for me to let someone into my life in that way, they would have to have a massive respect for where I am, what I've been through, kind of the wounds I have, and like, they'd have to be really understanding and gentle with me. And I think, again, it's said, like, if they were to be like that, then you know you're with a good person.
You know how people always say that, like, until you're healed and in a really good place, you shouldn't be with someone. I personally believe that there's certain things that you won't heal from previous trauma and bad relationships until you're with someone, because you won't know those triggers until they come up. Okay. So I feel like anyone may be listening to this that might be in that place where they're like, I'm still not great, so I'm going to just wait and be single and be on my own and be happy on my own. Sometimes I feel like people maybe wait too long, because until you go through experiences, you kind of can maybe be healed through another person.
And that's it. I don't think there's a time for anyone to be like, right, it's been this amount of months, maybe I can trust again.
I think it is just coming back round to how I explained that trusting and the issues that I had with trust very much are a reflection on the person I was with. Like, I wouldn't define me as having trust issues. I did, quite rightly. And I feel like it is that healing process and being with the right person where you'll probably then realise that maybe trust isn't actually that difficult.
Yeah. I think it's hard. You've almost got to make that disassociation that it is you have an issue with trust rather than trust with that person.
Yeah.
And it's that disassociation, isn't it?
Yeah.
But again, I think those are things that come with time, that come with mutual respect, that come with communication. Like, if you feel like, you know, you meet someone who can offer you those things, then I think that's important. It's like what you said, like, sometimes you need that person to help give you that. Like, how do you know you're not going to trust again? And it is terrifying, and it's not wrong to feel terrified to trust someone, and it's not wrong to feel like I will never be with anyone again or trust anyone. I've 100% said that.
Yeah.
Like,
I'm pretty sure you said it even like in the first episode.
Yeah, I probably did. I'll be forever on my own with my two boys. You know, if that happens, not the end of the world, but I would also like to be in a position where I could trust again, and I would love to have a relationship and fall in love and live happily ever after. Why should one experience like ruin it? Like, I am a hopeless romantic. Like, I really am. I want forever. I want a fairy tale. And I think as I've become an adult and experienced the things I've experienced and grown up and whatever, I realise life isn't a fairy tale. And, you know, things happen that you don't ever foresee happening to you or your life. But I do also think everything teaches us lessons. It helps us grow. And also now, like, I feel so sure of what I want and what I deserve. And
Well, now you know your self-worth.
And now I know my self-worth.
Yeah. I mean, talking about fairy tales, it's funny because I think that's maybe what made me hold on to my relationship for so long, because it was that I think I was so in love with the idea of our story. We met when we were 4, we went to school together, we grew up together. Like, what a lovely story to tell your children. Like, I met your daddy when we were your age.
Yeah.
We fell in love and we got married and had kids. But like, on paper, it sounds divine, but it wasn't. So I feel like as you do grow up and you are a bit more aware of what is realistic, you
and that's what it's like. And don't get me wrong, like there are people who do seem to have like fairy tale lives, and it's really easy to compare yourself and then feel like you're failing. But yeah, it's I think it's okay to feel terrified to trust again. And I think when the time is right, when it's the right person, when all the things of the universe align and allow you, I don't know, I think like I absolutely want to be in a place where I can feel like that. And I think that's exciting that maybe one day I will.
You will.
I will affirm.
We will.
I will. Yeah.
I feel like once we broke up, although a lot of the reasons were down to things that he had done, I think a lot of people probably end up feeling like this. I still felt like, why wasn't I enough? We've touched slightly on obviously like self-worth, and I know it's really cliche to say like, really until you love yourself you can't expect someone to love you, and I've never really completely believed that. However, I heard this thing on TikTok which really like resonated with me, and they said that if you only love yourself 10% and someone else comes along and loves you 20%, you're willing to accept that 20% because they love you more than you love yourself, and you think it's amazing. So it's like, wow, they're amazing. But really, 20% isn't very much. So they're probably not great for you. Whereas if you love yourself 80, 90%, you're only going to accept like that 90, 100%. Really like putting it on paper and talking about like those sort of percentages, it really made me realise that I really think for so long, I was probably at a 10% for myself, and I probably only got like 20, 30% from my ex. So I still thought like this is as good as it gets, because like he does, like, it's just really, it really made me realise going through my breakup how little worth I had for myself, and that in itself is just not a way to
exist.
Yeah, it's really sad. And look, I can't put the blame on him for my self-worth. Maybe he didn't make me feel loved from him, but it's my responsibility to like big myself up and make myself feel better. And I think that probably comes hand in hand with being able to trust someone in the next relationship. I think once you're in a better headspace, you know what you want, you know what you're willing to accept, then probably the person that you allow to be in your life is probably going to be trustworthy, because anything less you won't accept. Yeah. Do you know what I mean?
I agree with that. For me, it's just that it terrifies me, the thought of putting myself in a position of vulnerability where you put your trust in someone and they have the potential to just, I don't know. And again, I am really...
That's a relationship from the start. If you're with someone, they then in theory had the power...
Absolutely, yeah.
...to just shatter your whole relationship. And that's why you need to be in a place where instead of meeting someone that makes you happy, you need to be happy first, and then they are just the icing on the cake.
Yeah, I agree. They have to like optimize. I've always said this, like for me, it's like if I was to go into something else now, I feel like I have everything. And that sounds really like big-headed, but I have my boys, you know, I've got a job I love doing. I'm very mentally sure of myself and my worth. And if I was to ever meet someone again or allow someone in my life, they would have to just bring no drama. Like they would have to make me feel good and treat me in a way that I want to be treated, and there would be no non-negotiable.
Yeah.
Like the first sign of a non-negotiable, I would just check out, because for me, I don't need it. Like for me, if I was to meet someone, it would only serve me a purpose of enhancing my happiness.
Yeah.
I don't believe you should ever rely on anyone for your own happiness. And again, it's, I think where I checked out so long ago, I have been relying on myself for my own happiness for quite a while. I'm very happy in my own company. Again, even though people from the outside looking in at my marriage thought, you know, that we were in a really good marriage, I spent most of my evenings on my own. I spent a lot of time in the week with the kids on my own. A lot of what I do now is what I was doing before. Like I get asked all the time, aren't you lonely in the evenings? My evenings are literally no different. And so I think for a long time, I've had to become happy in myself, being on myself. I haven't relied on someone else for happiness for a very long time. And I think that's almost how I've checked out of it, and how I know a lot of people are like, Carly, like you're doing so well, you're so early on, but I don't think you never know what's going on in someone's marriage, and you never know. I was talking to my mum about it this week. I was like, I think I've been checked out of it so long that I got over it quite a while ago.
Yeah, I know that.
Almost needed something to happen to force it to end.
Yeah.
I would never have left, ever. So I'm almost grateful in that respect. And, you know, obviously it didn't happen the way I would have liked, but I don't think it would have ended in any other way. So we've had loads of you email in, kind of like the whole reason we wanted to do this was for you to feel like a community. When you're going through something like this, it can feel very isolating, and you feel like it's the kind of thing that would happen to other people and not you, and you can't ever see it in your little world, and then like it gets you. So yeah, that's why we've kind of like opened up the emails. We want you to feel like you've got someone here, we can all talk about it, and, you know, email in any questions, or if you want to share kind of like your story, essentially.
Yeah, definitely. So I haven't read any of these yet, and there's quite a lot, so I'm just going to pick at random. And yeah, so this one, hi girls, firstly I'm really looking forward to this podcast. Just a brief breakdown of the situation. I have 2 children, a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old. My ex and I split at Christmas, so it's been 5 months now. I just wasn't happy anymore, and hadn't been for such a long time. I fell out of love with him after my second baby and never really felt connected with him since. I stayed and tried to make it work for the kids as they're young. From the outside, it looked perfect. We had the lovely home, healthy, happy children, financially stable, and just seemed very happy. But I never was. My question is, do you hold a huge guilt for your children for breaking their home and normality? I can't shake the guilt to the point I've considered getting back together when that is not actually what I'd want. But I don't want my children to miss out, and I feel like I can't provide as much for them on my own as I could as a family unit.
I completely resonate with this one. And I think ultimately when you are a mum and you're going through something like this, it's so normal to feel like that. For me, I had massive guilt with thinking, should I try harder? Should I take him back? Should I put my feelings and thoughts to the side? You know, there is that desire to have that family unit. Like I said, that's been the hardest part. But ultimately what it comes down to is your happiness. And, you know, if you're happier, that radiates onto your kids.
Yeah.
That ultimately it's like 2 happy homes are better than 1 home. I know for me, the atmosphere in my house has been so different. Like everything's calmer. I've noticed difference in behaviour. You know, I'm just a really big believer. It is really hard to step away and think, I am the reason that my family unit is breaking down. And it's so normal to feel that guilt and like you could do something to save it. But ultimately it's not, that shouldn't be the prime reason for being with someone.
I feel like, I know obviously everyone says like think about the kids. I did think about the kids, of course. Like I always pictured that
happy family.
Yeah, absolutely. Like my parents are about to, you know, celebrate their 40th wedding anniversary. I wanted that. I've come from a family that are still, you know, together. That's what I grew up with. That's all I know. But eventually your kids are going to grow up and move out. And the last thing that I would want to do is look back and be like, now what? Like, I've literally sat around, wasted so many years of my life to give my kids that kind of like wholesome family unit when they probably would have just felt just as loved, separate.
Yeah, and I also think like as your kids get older, obviously mine are very young, but I feel like there's going to be questions, there's going to be talks about it. And I think like ultimately I would never want my child as he grows older to be in a relationship where he's not happy.
Yeah.
I would always want more. And I think you kind of have to live and demonstrate and kind of be that example as to that self-worth and the wanting more for yourself and that happiness. And you know, being able to articulate that when you have those conversations, when the time comes, like for me, I want that to be quite an honest thing. But I think ultimately what it comes down to is your children feeling loved. So, you know, you're incredibly loved by your mummy, you're incredibly loved by your daddy. We just don't live in the same house.
Yeah.
And I think ultimately if they feel safe and loved and nurtured, we put all this pressure that it should be from the same home, but I just don't think it's not the situation for a lot of people.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I hope that sort of helped. I think mum guilt at the end of the day, regardless of even just like
this situation. Yeah, you have guilt over everything.
Yeah, but you've got to put yourself first when it comes to something like that.
Your happiness is worth it.
This one stood out because it's called The Double Life. She put, evening ladies, I feel like the timing of this is crazy. I'm 3 weeks in. That is raw. Found out that my other half has been in a relationship for 2 years, the entire life of my second child.
Oh, that actually makes me sick.
He's spent an obscene amount of money from our family business, and the scale of deceit is mind-blowing. Holidays abroad, UK trips, and even lots in our hometown. She knew about me from the start and also had a boyfriend. There was emotional manipulation, abuse, gaslighting, which made it impossible to ever get answers. My red flags are secretiveness, jumpy around their phone and always closing things down when you're near, leaving it face down and never leaving it lying around, defensiveness, deflectiveness, gaslighting if you ever challenge anything, new corporate events that they never used to attend. I had that. New requirements to work in a different city or away, controlling your access to bank accounts, vagueness where you ask where they're staying or flight train information, new behaviours such as spending a lot of money on clothes, gyms, sunbeds, Botox, a newfound self-obsession with making an effort, new friends all of a sudden who he'd always meet for drinks, disengagement in family life and avoiding family occasions, not doing their hobbies anymore as there is other priorities elsewhere. Trust your fucking gut. If you have suspicions, do not drop it. Be aware of gaslighting behaviour. So if you feel the need to be like a dog with a bone, and if you get emotional abuse back, then you're probably onto something. I could write a book, so let me know if I can do any more. Like, my heart goes out to her because really reading some of that really resonates with me. Like, the general disengagement at home with the kids.
Interest in doing like family days out.
The new kind of like lots of corporate events and work nights out. Yeah, I had a lot of that.
But can I just say, like, good for you for actually
pushing.
Yeah, and seeing it and realising, like, no, like, it takes so much to walk away. It really does. Do
you know what pisses me off? Why have a 2-year relationship with someone? Don't be such a fucking coward and just leave
it. Yeah, I don't understand
the double life thing. I do feel like my ex had a double life. I don't know, but just whenever I recap on the things that I experience, I just feel like there's just so much I don't know. I don't understand how people can do that to the mother of their children.
It's a very specific type of person. I'm sorry, it's messed up. It's that person obviously has profound issues. It's being fed their ego in different ways. They're almost like getting kicks out of it.
I do actually think it just generally actually really comes down to just being a coward. They want their family. Yeah, they want their family life. They don't want to break up their unit, but at the same time they want to live like this thrill and like be that like big shot man, like doing this and that away from the home. Like, if there's any men listening to this and you're doing this, just fucking man up and leave.
End it.
It fucking pisses me off. Sorry, getting angry.
Tell. Hiya, I've been following both of you girls for a while as your experiences really resonate with me. I've just come out of a 2-year relationship. We met online. The first red flag was when he told me he was going to his sister's in Southend. His location on the app changed to Northamptonshire. Red flag.
Bad geography.
Yeah.
I probably wouldn't have even clocked.
When I questioned him, he told me he'd gone up there to watch the football and make use of a room he'd booked with an ex-girlfriend for a wedding so he didn't waste his money. I should have walked away there and then. A year-long relationship with this guy continued. He met my son and we were in love, but I couldn't shake this gut feeling that something wasn't quite right about him. So I went down his phone and there in black and white were photos and messages of him and his girlfriend who he'd been with while seeing me. Yet again, I let him talk me round. He told me he'd fallen in love with me and had made a massive mistake in not being completely honest from the beginning of our relationship. And it continued for another year until that same feeling crept in again. This time I'd found he'd been sending messages to various women in work, flirting and being quite suggestive. I felt like the biggest fool. I was so in love with this man. I went against everything I'd ever believed and ignored every single red flag. But I'll hold my hands up because I was partly to blame. I should have walked away before it became so toxic, but I genuinely believe this man was my new start. I'd never loved someone so intensely. Would be great to get your advice. It's been 2 months since we've split. I've had to block him and try and move on, but he's still finding ways of getting to me. It's so hard. Honestly, it's like what we were saying on last week's episode about red flags. It's like when you see them, you have to pay attention to them.
I know, but the thing is, she said she knew them and ignored them. And to be honest, like, I was guilty of that. Like, it is so much easier being that friend on the outside or, you know, outside looking in and being like, oh my God, like, you know, you need to get away. But when they, like, by the sounds of it, then like make you feel so loved and do all the right things, it is so much
that emotional manipulation though.
And the fact that she has blocked him and he's still trying to get it. Like, the thing is, as hard as it is and as maybe blunt as I sound, you have two options. You either stay strong and know your worth and do not let him in, or every time you take him back, you're just wasting more time and you're going to have more heartache.
Yeah, I agree.
Like, it's... The thing is, what I think is also a shame is, obviously with all these stories that we're reading and all the red flags that we're talking about and just generally our experiences, there are good men out there.
Yeah, there are.
And it's almost like the men that do all these things and the cheating, like, are tarnishing just men in general. And that's not the case. Like,
and I'm sure there's women that are like...
I was literally just about to say, I don't want to say it's all the men, but, you know, so many of my friends are in the most beautiful, gorgeous, happy marriages, and I don't want people listening that are in those happy marriages sitting here thinking like,
something
oh shit,
wrong.
like, do I need to start looking for, you know, these red flags or tracking my husband's phone?
Yeah.
Like, there are good people out there. Sadly, there's also people like this that are just, they're set in their ways, probably never going to change. Like, it makes me sad that, did she say that she's got to know, she introduced her child to him, she doesn't have a child with him. Like, count your lucky stars that you don't have a child with someone like that.
True.
And you can cut that contact, because I know we probably both mentioned, like, I found it really hard that I couldn't just cut the contact. You've got to accept that they're going to be in your life for the rest of your life when you've got kids with them. So I would say, like, you know what you need to do.
Yeah.
You can give all the advice that you want to give to these people, but really it comes down to when you are ready to take that leap of, like, blocking and done.
I agree. Yeah, I agree with that. Going to read one more. Hi ladies, follow you both and I'm in awe. Your posts make my day and I don't feel so alone when I see you. I'll keep it short. When my son was 6 months old, my partner sat me down and said that he thinks we should break up. We had a tough year before and had had that conversation a few months prior. I had brought it up, but I'd never heard him say the words himself, so it came as a shock. I was absolutely distraught and begged him to stay upstairs and sleep next to me as I was inconsolable. He said he wanted to sleep on the sofa. After 3 nights of him sofa sleeping, I take my baby 3 hours back to my parents for a couple of days to clear my head, speak to my mum, and she encourages me to try and rebuild the relationship. I agreed and felt enlightened. My partner then messages me to tell me he had been sexting his ex while sleeping on the sofa. I couldn't believe he had left me and his beautiful 6-month-old baby upstairs. My world was falling apart around me, and meanwhile he was downstairs masturbating to his ex-girlfriend and forming an emotional connection. Looking back, I feel it was going on a lot longer than what he said normally is, as she had been sleeping separately for a few months as he was working, as we had been sleeping separately for a few months as he had been working full-time. We co-slept and our baby was a nightmare at night, so he needed sleep. I never asked for evidence. The sexting admission was enough for me. Fast forward a few days to me going back to try and talk to him, make sense of it all, and for him to see his son. That night he said he had to go out to meet a friend. He showered, stank of his expensive aftershave. He refused to tell me who he was meeting. It turns out it was her. I packed up everything I could in my little car, took our son and drove 3 hours back to my parents. Our little family was destroyed. Fast forward 2 years, I've been battling breast cancer for 1 year and continue to do so. He has been hopping in and out of my son's life. I've allowed him to stay at mine and my son's house so he can spend time with him. It's been inconsistent, but it's been better this year. He's stepping up more than ever. It's still not great, but it's better. Him and I get on okay. I'd say we're friends, and there's no awkwardness or bitterness now, as our son is more important than our baggage. Now he wants to get back together. I don't know what to do. He struggles with mental health, so he needs therapy before anything. There's also a list of reasons why I shouldn't go back, let alone we live 3 hours apart at the moment. But do I do it for my baby boy's sake and try again? I'm so conflicted. I'm so poorly with my cancer treatments and mentally. Although I'm extremely strong and smashing life, I don't know if I can get over his deceit. Time is a healer, and I'm definitely better about it than I was a year ago. I just don't know. What would you do? Thank you. This is actually the short version of events, believe it or not. You are both incredible and your babies are beautiful. Stay strong.
Oh, sorry. I know. It's making me cry. I just don't know how people do it. It's how someone can put you through something like that. And I don't know, just the way this lady has come across, the strength it must take. And obviously I can't imagine everything you're going through with your diagnosis and battling that on top of obviously the challenges of a relationship ending and navigating that anyway. Obviously we've both been through that part, and to be able to handle anything else big like that thrown at you, it's just a lot. I think as well, you have to remember your self-worth here. I think if there's a big pull of you that doesn't know how you're going to get over that deceit, I just think of where as well you're in a good place at the moment and you've got a good relationship with him, that maybe that if it was me, I personally wouldn't. I don't know. I just think something massive like what you're going through, maybe just consider your happiness and just know you deserve to be treated in a way that's nothing less than amazing and with respect and dignity. And I just feel like, did she say it's been a few years now and he wants her back? Yeah. The thing is, I'm really blunt and I don't know you. So if you were my friend and my best friend was telling me this story, I would literally be like, absolutely no fucking way. Sorry if I'm coming across a bit harsh, but he sounds like an absolute waste of space. The fact that you are able to be friends with him and be amicable with him for your child's sake just shows the sort of person you are. And what he put you through shows the sort of person that he is. And I just think that you are just destined for so much more than being you'll just be going backwards. I don't personally believe that you can ever be truly happy going through what we've just read and then going back to someone like him. I honestly think you'd be better on your own with the support of your parents. I can't imagine how that must feel, what you're going through, but he sounds like a fucking waste of space, and I really hope that not that he would be, why would he be listening? But I really hope that you tell him to listen, because yeah, he's regretted it, because he's fucking realised that you're obviously fucking amazing and he's fucking nothing. Like, let him continue with his pathetic life.
And they often do. They often do regret it. And it's not till you're so far done moving forwards that they realise they can't have what they once did.
I think it just infuriates me that it's not until they hit that point where they realise that they've like fucked up. And I took back so many times in regards to, like, you know, things I found out and then just whatever, let's just carry on. It's not going to make you feel good in your relationship. Like, it's not.
Right.
I just think that with what she's going through, maybe it should make you realise, like, life is precious. Spend it with the people that really value you. Honestly, my heart goes out to you, because like I can't imagine what that must be like. I think listening to her story, I don't want to sound like a hypocrite, because like she sounds like unbelievably strong. And I think when I was in that situation, I felt like the fear of starting again, being on my own and leaving, was greater than the fear of staying in maybe a marriage that I wasn't that happy in, or the fear of being betrayed again or lied to. And I feel like until you get to that point where like 80% of the time you're not happy, that's at that point when I was like, I'm done. So I know it takes a lot of strength. It's very easy for other people to give their opinion, especially when they are maybe in a happy relationship and they don't really understand it. Like, oh my God, you're mad. Why are you still staying? But I just feel like going back to someone, I want to look at my path and just always be facing forward. Like, I just don't feel like going back is the best thing. And I feel like, you know, this episode about like being able to trust again, like I said earlier on, I feel like it's not that I lack trust in people, it's that I lacked trust in my relationship. So if I ever went back to that relationship, I'd be that same person. Although I've grown and I've healed, I still wouldn't trust, because I'm with that person. Whereas being with someone new, I hope and think I will be able to trust again, because I'll know that that person that I've chosen to be with is a good person, because I've now got my eyes wide open and I know what I'll accept and not accept. So yeah, I think it comes down to, you know, what we've been speaking about. I think you can definitely trust again.
And I think it's something that will come with time. It will come with healing. It will come with meeting the person that you can trust. And I think, like, for me, it seems quite a long way off, the feeling of ever being able.
But you know what?
And
that's okay.
And
you're not looking for like a marriage right now.
No, and it's okay to not trust right now. It's okay to know, actually, what I've been through has made me question a lot of things. And, you know, I think when the time comes for me to get into a relationship, I do feel like that person has to be understanding and patient with me, because I don't know, I feel like,
well, again, that's how you will know if that person's right for you.
Yeah.
They don't have that patience.
No, I agree.
And they're not willing to give you that reassurance that you feel like you need due to past trauma.
Yeah.
Then they're not right for you.
I feel like, I completely agree. I think that's like, again, it's a massive green flag.
Yeah.
For someone who, I'd want someone who would understand my past and what I'd been through. And I think I'd have to be very open with my past situation so they understood where that might come from. Because, like, I don't want to ever go into a relationship and be like a paranoid, psychopathic, crazy woman who's like, give me your phone, put your location on now, like, you want to be with me. I don't want to be like a psycho going into a relationship. I want to go into something.
But that's like, also when you'll know that you're not ready. 100%. I feel like there's a fine line between not wanting to take previous trauma and issues into a new relationship, but at the same time, having a partner that understands certain insecurities and needing certain reassurance because of issues. So you're not going to be like perfect in a new relationship. Like, I'm sure like there'll be times where I'll be like, something may happen that you find quite triggering because of another relationship and how they deal with
it's the communication of that.
Yeah.
The being honest and this is how I feel, this is why I feel like that. But them having that respect and kind of trying to make you feel secure in that relationship.
Yeah. So it's finding that point where you're in a good enough place that you're not carrying the trauma over, but you're still going to have triggering moments that you work on together with your new person. And that's when I think you know that you've got a solid unit for a good relationship moving forward.
Right.
On that note, I feel like we have kind of touched on everything in regards to trusting again. And I hope it's been a good listen and really helpful. And yeah, guys, if you loved it, please make sure you follow. It means the world to us. If you're going to come back and listen to another episode,
don't share with your friends. If you know anyone who's going through anything similar or you just think they'd enjoy listening to us, please tell them about us. Spread the word.
And we will see you guys again next week.
Thank you so much. Bye.